This conference will now be recorded.
So we have a few pull requests regarding copper files and then the HA files. So there are few small ones, not many changes in there. So do you want to talk about those first? Because there are so there are few of them which has a lot of changes, and there are simple ones which we can probably get it out of the way quickly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this is
Let's
there
start with
was
the.
one for the remote loopback option. Uh, so I'm not sure if anybody looked at it. I think Kamil looked at it, and he blessed the changes. So
This one we didn't review. Yeah, go ahead. Explain it quickly. Yeah.
yeah, so this is a loopback feature that Copperfy supports. So basically, what you can do is when you say remote, whatever traffic you're getting in, egress traffic or the received traffic on the port, you can just loop back that traffic back to the sender. So that's the remote loopback feature we have. So for example, let's say there are two ports, port 0 and port 1 connected back to back. And let's say I'm enabling remote loopback in port 0. And if you're sending traffic from port 1, expecting it to receive it on port 0. So we have a feature where port 0 can just loop back the traffic without in some chips we can accept the traffic, in some chips we can just loop back the traffic to the sender. So in this case, when the remote loopback is enabled, the traffic will go back to the port 1. It may or may not receive it on port 0. So that's the feature, and I'm adding a new enum entry. So I'm not creating a new attribute, it's just an enum entry for this loopback mode enum. So currently we have file loopback, my Mac loopback, and then I'm adding a remote loopback. That's all.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, my comment is for the sorry, for this remote loopback, right? So it can be also remote file loopback, remote Mac loopback. What kind of loopback is that?
No, this is so file loopback, and so basically it's at different levels, right? This is at the file level, this is at the Mac level, and
Yeah,
this
for
is a
the
remote.
remote
So
one. For the remote
yeah,
one, you
so
also have this.
I don't think the Phi and Mac are applicable here. So there are different loopbacks. So remote is at a different level again, even though it's called remote. It's from the Phi block. It's at a different level. So there are different levels like Phi, Mac, PCS. So uh,
Yeah.
so there is no remote Phi loopback really. So there's only remote loopback or Phi or Mac.
So this is still at the file level, the remote one.
It is still at the Phi level. Yeah.
Okay. So should we
And
add file
even at the
remote?
file level, there are different levels, right? So there's as you said, there's DCS and other things.
Yeah. PCS there and yeah.
Yeah.
So it depends on
How do
from
we
which block.
how do we
From
differentiate them?
um. So how do we differentiate? I mean, we can add more documentation if you want to differentiate it, but
Actually, what's the
that's all right.
difference
Yeah.
with the current loopback mode file then?
So the file loopback is basically you're enabling loopback on the same port. So if the loopback is enabled, the same traffic will loop back. So it will
Okay.
not go out on the wire.
Okay.
In this case, in remote loopback is a little bit different, where the packets which are coming on the wire are looping back to the sender.
Then it's not internal loopback, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can call it. It could be, I mean, you can call it internal or external. I mean, if you, I didn't want to create a new attribute. That's why we plugged into the loopback. But
I see
if
the question. Where is this loopback configured? Is it on source
on
port
the
or is
file,
it on the remote?
so you can
Yeah,
configure
yeah.
it on the source port. I mean, it depends, right? It depends on your topology. So wherever you want to configure, it's a PHY feature. You can configure it on the PHY. So when it is configured on the PHY, whatever traffic you are getting it onto that PHY will be looped back to the sender.
Okay.
So to answer your question, it really depends on your topology and how you want to use this loopback. It could be on the source port or uh, destination port or whatever, right? I mean, it's bi-directional traffic. So
Okay. So it is not like the configuration triggered from the local end to the remote. It is at the local end itself. When we are receiving traffic on this particular port, whatever is received at the file level, it will be looped back towards the sender. Is it
yeah,
right?
that's correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you.
I think you know, as I said, right? So there's different level of remote loopback. You can loop back at different places. So I think, can you add you know, how do we differentiate them? Maybe add a few more enums to differentiate them.
Few more enums, or you're saying documentation?
No, not documentation, right? So remote loopback, they can do the remote loopback at a different block.
Okay. Just so you're suggesting that we should create a different enum for the remote loopback
Yeah,
for in this case.
for different types of remote loopback, right?
So we, I mean, from Broadcom point of view, I don't think there are any other remote loopbacks that we support. So if there are any other vendors which are supporting it, then we can add it. But I don't see a reason. But anyways, I mean, I cannot talk about other vendors. But if you think we should we should create a different enum, that's fine. I can create a different enum, but then we have to create a new attribute also for that. So to your point, if you're saying there are different file loopbacks, any whoever wants to support it, they can always add a new enum entry, right? To this enum. For
No, I
example,
think,
let's say
for
remote
instance,
PHY or remote Mac or remote PCS or whatever, right?
yeah, but for your case, for this remote, then what does it mean? Which level?
So it's actually at the first level, right? I mean, there is no block called as that. I mean, there's no particular name, but we can say remote PHY also if you want to say remote PHY. So it's at the file level. As soon as the traffic gets in, we'll just gonna loop back. And if you are interested, there will be more details available in the datasheet, chip datasheet. So so we can rename it to remote PHY or something like that, or PHY remote to make this specific at the PHY level.
Okay.
Yeah, the name is a little bit confusing, Sid. You say
Okay.
internal, right? But actually, it's not exactly internal, right? It is external. Loopback is towards the remote side, right?
Yeah, that's correct. I thought about it, but then the then we have to go with a new attribute, and then because then we have to distinguish between internal and external. So we have to come up with a new attribute for the external loopback, and then have this enum that will only have remote right now, remote
Yeah, I
PHY.
think
That's all.
we need to do that. We need to do that, Sid,
That's fine. I
because
mean, it
it
will
doesn't
have
fit
more.
the current. Yeah.
We can do
I
that,
mean,
and then
but are they actually independent? Like the internal loopback versus external loopback? Can the port doing both internal loopback as well as external loopback?
No, I
Because
don't think so.
to
Yeah, I don't think so. So, whatever we
Wait,
support, you can.
but this is different direction, is it? Like the original internal loopback file, is it like sending out of the port and the loopback?
Can you
To
repeat your
understand my
question,
question.
Rita?
Yeah,
Is
so the original loopback mode file, can you explain what it is again? The
original Phi and Mac?
the first line here, loopback mode file.
More Phi, right?
Yeah.
So basically in the Phi there are different blocks, right? One is at the Phi level, one is at the Mac level. So it depends on which level you want to send the traffic and loop back. So if you enable it Mac level, then the traffic will go up to the Mac level and loop back from there. And for the Phi again, it will go to the Phi level and then loop back.
So it's sending out of the file and it loop back, right?
So there are, I think, different implementations. In some implementations, you have to use a loopback plug, and then that loopback. Uh, so again, it's vendor dependent. There could be a
Sid,
case
I
where,
think the question is the direction. Rita is looking for the direction.
yeah,
Which
direction is coming back. So basically, the Phi and Mac loopback are operating on the same port. The traffic which is going out on the wire, I mean,
supposed
the
yeah,
traffic that is
supposed
initiated to go out on that port will loop back on the same port.
Right. And then
So
the
in the
new
remote, the direction is different.
that's
So
correct.
the traffic coming out on the wire will loop back to the sender. So you can call it as external. That's okay. We can create
No,
also.
coming out of the wire, send it back to the. Oh, it's when it's received from the wire, it's sent back to the sender, or
Yes, yes,
okay. So the direction is reversed, right, from
yeah, it
the
is.
previous one.
It is, yeah.
So then, going back to Gohan's question, are they independent? Can they be coexisting to use?
I don't think our chip supports it, but we'll have to confirm. But I
So
don't think we support that.
so when one set one attribute, they cannot set the other.
Yeah, and that's how it's just one enum entry, right? And there's only one attribute, so you can only set one of these. It's mutually exclusive, kind of.
No, in the hardware, you could only set one of the setting, not both.
Yes. For now, it is. That's how it is.
Okay, then they might need to have some relationship then. Yeah.
Because if we have that actually brings up another point. If you create another attribute and have another enum for remote Phi, then driver will be smart enough, will have to be smart enough to detect the configuration on the internal as well as external if they don't support both at the same time. So that adds some complexity to the driver. Then we have to check if internal loopback is configured or not, and then if it is, then you can't either reject the configuration of external or override it. So
I think probably it seems like the attribute should be is better to be say okay side port loopback mode, right? So then you can have an internal Phi, internal Mac, or external, right? So but that has to change the attribute name, right? So
yeah.
Do we have Camille? Is there a way to navigate that kind of?
What was the question?
It seems like they want to add new enum. I mean, it's basically the side port internal loopback mode should be really named as side port loopback mode.
Yeah, so the initial name is kind of misleading, I would say. I mean, or we want to extend this instead of side port internal loopback, mode, we want to make it a SAI port loopback, so we can accommodate all kinds of loopbacks in there.
And is there a problem with adding a new enum?
The name is not accurate.
So change the name?
Is there a way to be backward compatible?
For the entire enum name, right now, no, there is no way to be backward compatible. Because it's like entire change for the type, yeah. We can have like add right now we can add multiple more enums and just add ignore value and mark them as deprecated for the existing ones and just treat the new ones as replacement. But for the entire type, no, there is no way to make entire enum deprecated, and I'm not sure if that will be like easy achievable right now.
And it's not just enum, right? You'll have to change the attribute name also, right? Because I think attribute is SAI port internal loopback mode.
So what would be the proper name to actually name this enum?
So just SAI port loopback mode, no internal.
So
I mean,
can we then introduce a new attribute called SAI port attribute, the loopback mode, and then add the external there, also include the internal, and then we can mark this internal loopback mode as a deprecated.
Yeah, we can do that. So basically have the same enum entries in there, and then add this remote.
Yeah, remote file.
I mean, you can change this type name here, but that needs to be then propagated to each vendor that's using those types to also change the name. And in Sonic there would be no way to make this like automatic change, so we would need to because we keep all the values in the database in a string form, so we would need to make some manual conversion to actually translate this internal loopback mode to just loopback mode, yeah, like specifics to add a custom specific logic in Sonic for deserializing the existing stuff, if we want to go that way.
Is it easy to do it, or is it a lot of work? Or,
I mean, so how many enums do you have here? Like
just
5?
one enum. Just, I mean, yeah, like 3 or 4 entries. That's
Yeah,
all.
so we just like adding 3 string comparisons. It's not a huge amount of work. Yeah.
So what is the suggestion? Add a new attribute called the SAI port loopback mode and add all those internal there. And then we can add the external as well for that loopback mode, and then mark this internal loopback mode as deprecated. We want to remove the, for the next release, right? So then we'll have both. And then for the next release, we can remove the internal loopback mode, so it can allow application to transition to the new attribute.
Okay, we can do that. The only thing is the driver, all the applications and drivers will have to be changed to take the new one. So that's work for all other vendors. That's fine. We can do that.
Yeah, I think from the vendor's perspective, changing that name is just an easy task. Yeah, it's just a search and replace. Yeah, so it's not a huge big deal.
Yeah, and we are using a new attribute also, not just enum, change enum, but they'll have to use new attributes also. So uh, we can do it. That's fine. We can do it. I don't know about other vendors, but
Why can't we do with a single attribute, Sid? See, instead of SAI port internal loopback, why can't we call that as SAI port loopback mode? Because a
no,
given
we'll
port can be configured in internal or remote, right? One of these. They're mutually exclusive, right?
yeah, we will do it, right? So what Gohan is mentioning, at least suggesting, is that we'll create a new attribute, and then there will be a new enum without internal, so it can be used for internal as well as external. That's what you're asking, right? Yeah, we will create a new attribute and new enum that will be named as SciPort loopback mode. That's all, and all these enums will be updated. They won't be internal. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same.
Will we retain this enum, is it?
Sorry.
But still we retain this enum, is it? Like SAI port internal loopback mode.
Yeah, that's what he said. So we'll retain it for few releases, and after that, it's gonna get deprecated, and then yeah, vendors will have to use the new attribute and new enum.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay, thanks.
Okay, is that the conclusion then? All right, we'll see. So there's
So
another.
actually, sorry, Sid. Yeah, actually today there's multiple topics. So maybe let's go to the Sinki PR then, or Tarek, if there's some PRs that you like to
Before
one
before
one or
syncing,
two.
I think there are some other important ones that we want to
So
go
you
through.
have until maybe 8:30 or 8:30, 40 or yeah. So 10 minutes. Then which one you like to close from Broadcom side?
Yeah, we can try to close this one.
Yeah.
Why is it not working? I'm pressing it, but it's not going. Oh, okay. So this was presented, this PR was presented a few weeks back. There were some comments and questions, and we did come up with a document, a simple document, copper phi attributes, and we tried to explain a few things, and then so how do you want to do it? Do you want to go through this again, or because this was discussed a few weeks back? And then we whatever comments we had, we replied to all the comments.
I think if there's no open comments, then we can approve and merge. Probably last call for the audience here then.
Okay. Anybody has any other questions on this PR, or maybe we can wait for a day or something so that people can go through it and then reply to us. Is that okay, or you wanna?
So there is question about sequence, right? So you have answered the question, but then I mean, how do we make sure
How do
the
I go to it?
information can retain and future people doesn't need to look at the comment here?
Which one?
This current PR 1217.
Is this the one? Expected sequence?
Yeah. So could this information be part of the PR description? I mean, right now this PR doesn't have description, is it?
I mean, we do have it. We added a file which has more information.
Oh, there's a document. Okay, okay.
Yeah, there's a document that we added
Okay.
to this
Is
PR,
the
so they can.
sequence over there as well?
I can check it. If it's not there, I can add it.
Yeah.
But I think we tried to add it.
Okay.
So please capture what is expected sequence to be followed with these attributes and requires the medium auto detect to be disabled.
So I think it'd be good if
So
sequential
this is actually not. Basically, it's calling like setting multiple attributes. That's all. There's no sequence really here. If auto detect is configured, then we will use that auto detection when configuring the fiber mode. If it's not configured, then we won't use it. So there is no sequence really here. It's just the way you want to configure. It's like a feature, port feature that you want to enable or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this auto-neg config mode, do we should have some conditions that this is only applicable when auto negotiation is enabled?
Which one? Auto medium?
No, auto-neg config mode.
Do we have
I
that?
think
I thought
we have a auto negotiation already, right? So
yeah, let me see if we have it. File change, right? Oh, no, MDX mode. Yeah, auto config mode.
maybe you guys have
Yeah.
discussed, but how is it related to the auto negotiation mode we have currently?
So, on a copper file, we provide additional knobs where you can control whether you want to initiate auto-neg or you want to wait for the auto negotiation request from the peer. So it's an additional feature. It's not related to meaning auto negotiation functionality, but it's kind of additional knob that we're providing so that user can configure whether that port wants to be in the master mode or the slave mode, where who wants to initiate the auto-neg. So that's why this is an additional feature. And to your previous comment, yeah, this can only be enabled if auto-neg is enabled, or you can just configure it before auto-neg can be enabled.
Are these in a document?
I think this is a little bit confusing, right? So we have auto negotiation mode, and if that is enabled and this one is still disabled, then what is the behavior?
So then, whatever hardware has a default, it will just use it as default. So my guess is, again, it varies based on the hardware. If hardware supports that, then it will start its auto-neg. That's all.
No, it's not about hardware, right? So you have two attributes, both controlling auto negotiation mode. And what if
No. So which two attributes are you saying? This one auto-neg mode and then the original auto-neg enable?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So auto-neg.
you have this, yeah.
Yeah. So the previous or the existing auto-neg enable will only control the auto-neg enable disable, and this is an additional knob that we're providing to configure the port whether to be in the master mode or the slave mode. Uh,
Yeah. My
so
question is, what if the other attribute is enabled and this attribute is disabled? What is the behavior?
That's what, then it depends on the hardware, right? So hardware,
No,
then it
it
will just
cannot be
enable.
dependent on hardware, right? So it cannot be dependent on hardware. We have to
I mean,
specify. It must be clear.
okay, so I can add more documentation on for this attribute in the document that we added, how it will behave depending on the autoneg enable attribute, the existing autoneg enable attribute,
No,
and
if
then
this one, if this is additional mode, why can't you just remove the disable here and use that one to control enable and disable, and this one only controls slave and master?
mm, yeah, we can do that. We can remove disable. That's fine. So we have auto and then slave and master. Auto is basically you let the hardware drive it, whatever the hardware default. And where I kept saying hardware because each vendor can have their own configuration and their own design. And that's why I was saying it could be hardware dependent. And so we can remove disable, and then user can only configure either auto mode, slave, or master. Auto meaning the hardware will have its default.
And also
Hey,
you need to add this condition, right? So this attribute is only applicable when the auto negotiation mode is true. Auto nego mode is true.
so actually, could this be separated from this PL? This TPL title didn't really say there's something added for AutoNet.
So we can update the PR title.
No. Create another new one for this AutoNet config thing, so that
No, I
next
think
time
that
we
is
are
for
really trying.
auto negotiated resolve fact actually. That
Hmm?
is not related to this one.
Sorry.
Yeah, other PR which is separated, that is for resolve fact, auto negotiation resolve fact.
No. I think let's not put different changes into one PL, right?
Okay.
No, I think what she's saying, Tarak, is create a completely new one, right, Rita? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yes. Especially, I think there's some major change for this alternate config suggestion here, right?
Yeah, also this port attribute module type, how is it different from the interface type here? We have a port interface type and there defines a lot of different interface. How is that different from that?
I'm just trying to see if we can accommodate this in interface types. So this was created so that you can configure a particular module that you're inserting, like 1000 basics or HDMI slave, and so the difference here is so these are additional interface types in fiber, right? In fiber mode, I mean the port is still a fiber port, but for example HDMI slave, you will use a specific module which has an internal PHY in the module and which converts fiber to copper, and the interface type that you have, it is still fiber to the user, but internally we are changing that to the copper. So there is no additional configuration that we can have, or we'll have to introduce a new interface type, fiber plus copper or something like that. So you got my point, right? So there are two different interfaces we are talking about here. The interface to the PHY, external PHY, is fiber, but on the line side, you are inserting a copper cable, and that's why
Yeah.
we are separating out. That's why we are separating out. 1000 base-X is only the fiber interface, but it's a specific module that you are plugging in. 100FX is another module that you are plugging in, and then HDMI slave is again altogether a different module. It's a converter, fiber to copper.
How is it different from the interface type? We have a, can you just add to the interface type?
I'll have to see because I will check because to the PHY we want so there are different features we support where you are explicitly forcing the PHY into for this particular module. But I can check if we can add this to the interface type. Then we can remove this enum and then the attribute. I can get back to you on this. I'll have to think about it. And so if there is any use case where the interface type is different than the actual module you're plugging in, and if we want the module information, then we'll have to have a different one. Otherwise, what you suggested, we can do that. We can club these, we can combine these into the interface type enums.
I think there is also a pod media type and your pod media preferred. Is that clear?
Port media preferred. Let's have a look at what.
There's also a pod media type be defined. I think we need to
So this is media preferred. So basically, so the media type can only configure either a copper or a fiber mode. So what this does is media preferred is so some of our designs where you can have both copper and fiber ports, and both can be enabled. I mean, you can have wires connected to both ports, copper ports as well as fiber ports, and then user can choose which one they want to use. And they can be for example, in a particular design, let's say there are four ports, four copper and four fiber ports, but to the PHY, to the system side, or to the switch that it's connected to, it only has four ports. So you can either use copper ports or fiber ports. In that case, we are providing an option for the user to choose which ports you want to use, whether you want to use the copper port or fiber ports. And this media preferred is the knob where you are saying that fiber ports are preferred versus copper ports. So this will enable only one set of ports. So the current media type attribute does not, I mean, work in this case because it's one-time configuration that you're doing, and that's what enabling that set of ports, either fiber or copper. But this can be dynamic. You can dynamically change it, and then depending on the link, wherever you have link, those ports can be active.
yeah, but what is the relationship between them, right? So, you know, if someone said that media type and also said it's preferred, which one overrides? What is the behavior there?
So we'll have to take that in the driver. I mean, we'll have to control that in the driver. For example, if
The question, the question is how do we define the behavior? What is the behavior, right? So not control from the driver, but if people said this polymedium type and to copper and also said it's preferred, then what is the behavior there?
so it okay. I mean, to the driver, then it's an invalid configuration, right? I mean, we just reject the configuration, saying you are configuring a copper port, but you are setting it as preferring it as a fiber port. So that configuration will be rejected as an invalid configuration.
What is the value of the configuration? I think it's unclear. It's No, I think the attribute introduced, I think, definitely address some use cases, but the problem is that how does this new attribute impact the existing attribute? How do they call work together? That one I don't see much discussions in the pull request. So what is the behavior? Because it leaves the questions later. People use this as they need to understand the behavior expectation, right? So
So
We actually have overrun. So you want to think about it and come back?
so I've been actually emailing, asking for updates on this PR, and we did not get enough response for like more than a week. And we do have some important releases, and we wanted to get this thing done so that we can release our software. So because currently it's not going anywhere, we go update the responses, and then we don't hear anything back from the community. So I'm just trying to see how can we uh, I mean, we can address the issues what you have, but we also need to think about the timelines here. um, so what do you suggest, Guhan, in order to support this new PR, I mean new use case? What do you suggest? Because this is a new use case, and the existing attribute is not able to is not enough to support this use case,
yeah,
and
I
that's
understand
why
that.
we introduce a new attribute.
Okay.
We can modify the attribute name or add more documentation to make it clear, but
So who else need to be in the meeting? I think we can have a separate meeting with Joe and to close this one. Okay.
okay, so maybe I can schedule something maybe tomorrow. Is that okay?
What is your time? Is it are
Yes.
you in
PST. I'm in Pacific time zone.
Pacific time zone?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can schedule some meetings tomorrow, like maybe 9 o'clock. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and who else is gonna participate? Or maybe
Joe?
Joe. Maybe I
Oh
can send
yeah.
it to you, and then you can forward it to him. Or...
Oh, you can send to also CC this community list.
Okay. Right.
And yeah, and me, Joe, and I think whoever interested can join. Yeah. So.
Sure. Okay. I'll schedule something tomorrow, 9 o'clock, 9 a.m.
Yeah.
All right. And then Rita, we have few more PR. So
Yeah. Sorry. Let me ask Mike. What's your preference? Do you want to use the remaining 10-15 minutes or? I'm
So,
sorry.
I mean, we've already, so it's fine. What I would ask is that, like, I don't think it makes sense to try to force that into another, like, review of my effect change. So here's what I would request is that we, ping people to take a look at it in terms of like the documentation I added and the additional Boolean, and leave comments on the PR. And if we need to, I'm fine with having a separate, like, hopefully less than 20 minutes or a half hour meeting on it.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we could. Do people like to have another meeting tomorrow? Half an hour, 8:30. Any objection?
On the FEC one.
Yeah, for
Um,
this topic.
so tomorrow is a Google day off.
Okay.
So I'm if it's early in the day Pacific time, I'm okay with doing it because I don't really have any plans. But I would like prefer not to do a middle of the day or anything like that. Or we could do it like Tuesday, something like that. I would like to get to resolution on this because it has kind of dragged on a little bit, as is, just because there was a fair amount of discussion due to the backward compatibility issues.
Yeah. So we'll schedule one meeting and then for this one then. Yeah, maybe to next Tuesday then. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine
And
by me.
okay. Yeah, Broadcom, if you like to continue then. Sorry, Mike, and thanks for your consideration.
Yep.
Okay, Broadcom, if you would like to continue.
Okay, so there is another PR that we uh, we have created. This is regarding the firmware download process. It's a 5-step process. I don't know if anybody looked at it, but I think Gohan had a question, and we did update the documentation for that. Can you provide a call example? And uploaded a document. So So this is the document that provides the 5 steps, firmware download 5-step process. And
We don't. Are you clicking? Are you showing document or we didn't
yeah,
see it moving?
you're not able to see my screen?
We can see, but it's not moving.
Oh, it's not moving?
You have another screen or something, or?
Oh. Can you see it now? Is it moving?
No.
Oh, maybe I have to share it again. Okay, can you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the firmware broadcast PR. So we do have in our files, we do support firmware broadcast feature, and in order to support that, we do follow some. I mean, we have 5-step process to do the broadcast download, and when we designed this, we had added a few steps which are needed, but I think there was one step that was not included in the PR, so I'm adding that firmware broadcast begin attribute that will enable the broadcast on the files. And this is the call example that I think Goham requested. So basically, we need to follow 5 steps. The steps are core reset, broadcast enable, execute, verify firmware, and broadcast disable. So we do have attributes for these ones for step 1 and 3, 4, 5. but we don't have an attribute for the second step where you're enabling the broadcast. So that's why I'm adding a new attribute here, and I've included the call. So initially, for the core reset step, you you set init switch and then the firmware download broadcast step. This is these are existing attributes, and then second step, and sorry to go back, but so the first step will have to be done on all the files which are using, and then second step is the broadcast enable step on each file again. This is what we are proposing, a new attribute. And third step, we already have an attribute available, download execute. This will be called only on one file. And then verify firmware, we do have attribute which will be called on all the files. And then broadcast disable to disable the broadcast. And these will be called first attributes will be part of create switch API call, and then the subsequent attributes will be part of set switch attribute API calls. Any questions?
What is the existing flow? I think this has been discussed a long time back. So
Yeah.
what is the existing flow?
So the existing flow, since we don't have this broadcast begin, we are actually calling create switch 5 times to enable this, and we are overloading one of the attributes. So the first step, you do a create switch with these two attributes, and second step, you only pass this broadcast in the create switch. So create switch is getting called 5 times, and we always return the same switch object ID back to the user.
I think we had previously this discussion about this approach, and we didn't have final settlement on that.
If I remember it correctly, we decided to go with this. I can pull up the email thread. I remember we had an email thread where I proposed all the options, possible options, and then the option that we thought that would be good is what we are proposing right now.
Hey Camille, are you able to join tomorrow 9 a.m.? I think we'll have Joe there. I don't know. Last time did we have Joe there in that discussion, or is it only you there and me?
I think I think Joe was there. I guess so. So we had you, Camille, Joe, and folks from Broadcom. So
Okay. Yeah, I just
Are
had
you talking about are you talking about the 9 a.m. Redmond time?
9 a.m. Redmond time. Yes.
Yeah, okay, I can join that. Can you send me a link invite?
sure,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
can send it.
yeah, Sid, I think also send to Camille. I think tomorrow, right? So just to save some time, I think if you can think about our question. So we'll first discuss your MDL, those that PR, right? So the first PR, and if you can think about this auto media and how it's related to the current attribute and have some kind of proposal to address our concern, I think it will be easier, because otherwise we will do the brainstorming on that things as well, right? So
Yeah,
then we'll discuss this one, right? Okay. Hopefully we can do it in 1 hour, but if
yeah.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Okay. Because I think this requires there may be changes needed on your SWSS and other components also to support this broadcast firmware download broadcast process.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So therefore, I think it's been too long. I mean, if we can close that at that time, I think it would be easier for us to yeah. All
Okay,
right.
let me think
Okay.
about it. If we want to discuss this, I'll check internally and see if this is an important one that needs to be closed quickly. If it's not, then we can push this to the next PR meeting or the next meeting.
Uh-huh.
Anyways, I'll check and I'll let you know. Regardless, I'll set up a meeting and then we can talk about other things.
Okay.
All right, I think so. We are top of the hour. Then I think it's 9 o'clock already.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sid, and thanks, Gohan, and everyone. Yeah, thank you. Bye.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Okay, bye guys.